Welcome, history fans. Today, a tiny, broken fleet fights the largest and most frightening armada. 600 Persian warships darkened the wide horizon, while King Xerxes watched from a golden throne. Against them stood fewer than 300 Greek vessels, trapped like hunted prey inside a narrow strait. Military logic dictated that the Greeks would be entirely crushed within a single day. So how did this tiny, desperate fleet manage to sink half the Persian navy and save the West? It is the autumn of 480 BC. The waters echo with impending doom. A massive dark shadow falls across the crashing, violent waves, cast by an empire that swallowed the world. 600 heavy Persian galleys row together. Their synchronized oars strike like rolling thunder. According to ancient records, the Persian king brought fighters from every single conquered nation. Standing against this unstoppable beast is a fractured coalition of Greek city-states. Barely 300 battle-scarred triremes remain. Their bronze hulls are dented, and the men exhausted. Admiral Themistocles stands upon his weathered deck. He gazes grimly at the vast numbers. The wind rips through his cloak as he grips the bronze rail. His eyes calculate the deadly odds ahead. Below the deck, brave Greek oarsmen grip their heavy oars. Their tanned backs glisten with the freezing sea spray. They are now outnumbered roughly 2-1. If this line falls, Western democracy is gone forever. Yet Themistocles refuses to surrender. He knows that battles are not won by numbers. History experts highlight his brilliant foresight. He made Athens spend all their silver on warships. Without that crucial gamble, many long years ago, there would be no naval fleet to defend them today. The massive Persian armada starts to advance. They move like a dark, creeping plague across the sea. The deafening sound of Persian war drums fiercely rolls out, clearly designed to strike terror into their foes. However, the Greeks do not break formation. They simply hold their ground, waiting for the moment. A direct naval clash in the open water means death. The Persian ships could easily outflank them. Themistocles stares at the narrow Salamis Strait. This rocky choke point is his only salvation. The geography of the strait is very tight. Only a few ships can sail side by side within its walls. If he can lure the enemy fleet into this trap, their numerical advantage will vanish. But how do you convince the Persian generals to sail willingly into an obvious trap? You cannot rely on brute force or the divine. You must use human psychology and arrogance. The Greek vessels suddenly begin rowing back. They keep a defensive stance, retreating away. To the Persian observers from a far distance, it looks like the Greeks are finally running away. It is a masterful performance on the sea, completely masking the deadly strategic intent. Slowly but steadily, the small Greek defenders fade into the treacherous Salamis channel. The trap is set, aligning perfectly with the coast that favors a desperate, cornered defender. Now, everything depends on if the Persian king will take the bait and send his armada inside. Dawn breaks over the mountain peak of Agalio. Gold morning light pierces the overcast, gloomy sky. High above the churning waters, a structure is built, right on the edge of a treacherous, jagged cliff. It is a solid gold throne, gleaming with luxury, disconnected from the grim naval warfare below. King Xerxes sits comfortably upon his high seat. He smiles smugly, convinced of his glorious victory. He looks down at the sea like a divine hunter, watching a helpless animal waiting for its end. Flanking the throne are his elite immortal guards. They stand motionless, in silver scales and purple silk. There is no secret weapon owned by the Greek forces. No magical storms were called by ancient pagan gods. The harsh historical reality is that the Greeks are purely outmatched in size, wealth, and maritime strength. Down in the dark waters, the Persian fleet hesitates. They watch the Greeks retreat into the narrow passage. Some seasoned Phoenician captains warn against entering. They see the dangers of sailing into a tight space. But King Xerxes is blinded by his towering ego. He wants to crush them and return home in total triumph. Modern historians argue his supreme arrogance was his greatest weakness, deadlier than any sword. He views the retreating Greeks as cowardly pests running, failing to see the invisible noose around him. The psychological pressure on the Greeks is immense. Many generals urge him to abandon the ocean. They argue that fighting on land at the Corinth Isthmus is the only logical and proven choice remaining. But Themistocles remains aggressively steadfast. He understands a land wall can be bypassed by navy. If the Allied fleet disperses now, the pact will fracture, and the Persian Empire will devour them piece by piece. This narrow water at Salamis is their final stand. Here, the fate of all Western civilization rests. To force the battle on his uncompromising terms, he decides to commit an act of total deception. He realizes he cannot control his allies for long. He must force the Persians to attack them right now, tonight. Tension inside the Greek camp reaches a true boiling point. Angry commanders grip their bronze weapons in frustration. He knows an external shock is the only way to bind them. He will burn the bridges and lock them in a fatal fight. As night falls, the crashing waves obscure the sounds of a man slipping quietly into the freezing, dark abyss. It is Salamis, a trusted Greek slave and loyal tutor, embarking on a dangerous mission with no return. He carries a tightly rolled parchment that holds the deadly power to alter the course of human history. He rows a tiny wooden skiff toward the Persian camp, lit up by many thousands of flickering torches. If you were a commander facing overwhelming odds, would you risk it all on a bluff? Tell us in the comments. The slave is quickly captured by heavy Persian patrols. He demands a private meeting with King Xerxes himself. Inside the dimly lit Greek command tent, he stands in shadows. A single oil lamp reflects off his bronze armor. Meanwhile, in the Persian pavilion, King Xerxes unrolls the parchment. His eyes dart across the Greek text. The forged letter claims Themistocles has secretly defected, driven by fear and bitter rivalries. It states that the Greek coalition is crumbling from within, and many ships plan to flee away tonight. The message offers Xerxes an irresistible chance. Attack the Strait now and crush them in the darkness. It is an incredibly dangerous gambit. If he sees the lie, he could simply starve the Greeks to death. But Themistocles knows the deep mindset of tyrants. Men with absolute power rarely question their ego. Xerxes is hungry for a swift and decisive victory. He wants to burn Athens and return a mighty god. Ignoring the cautious advice of his seasoned naval commanders, the king swallows the deceptive, deadly bait. The monumental order is shouted across the Persian camp. All 600 ships must launch into the bitter dark. Under the faint moonlight, the gargantuan Armada moves. Thousands of wooden oars strike the choppy black water. They're not forming a standard organized battle line. They rush frantically to block exits and trap the prey. This frantic rush forces the massive ships to cram tightly as they navigate the treacherous, narrow channel. Back in the Greek camp, a scout bursts into the command tent, breathless. He confirms the Persians have surrounded them. The arguing Greek generals freeze in sudden awareness. There is no way out. They are forced to fight or drown. His brilliant psychological gambit perfectly succeeded. He destroyed the dangerous luxury of choice. The soldiers hastily don their heavy bronze helmets. The metallic clanking echoes along the rocky beach. They march grimly toward their battered triremes, gripping their spears. The exhausted rowers find a surge of fury. There will be no cowardly retreat tonight. Only the ruthless violence of close-quarters naval combat. Deep inside the channel, the heavy Persian galleys struggle against the strong currents and the blinding darkness. They cannot see the Greek fleet. The cramped space forces the huge Persian vessels to row dangerously close. Confusion spreads among the multinational crews. Shouted orders in dozens of languages cause chaos. The towering ships awkwardly block each other's paths. Their long wooden oars begin to scrape and tangle in the dark gloom. This is the fatal flaw of giant numbers. Without maneuvering space, an army becomes paralyzed. The great king anticipates a glorious victory. He sits up straight, eyes widening as dawn lights up the sea. However, as the morning mist violently burns away, the terrifying reality is revealed. The Persian Armada is utterly jammed. Hundreds of ships are parked side by side, unable to move out. They have blindly walked into a deadly bottleneck. And resting quietly in the shadows, the Greeks are waiting. The mystery box is finally opened. The secret weapon was not magic, but the tight geography. A deafening trumpet blast shatters the tense silence. The Greek fleet halts its fake retreat and fiercely spins around. Themistocles stands firmly at the prow, his bronze sword raised high. He roars a mighty command to attack with full force. Thousands of Greek oars plunge into the water in perfect unison. The fleet surges forward like starving wolves. The heavy bronze rams on the Greek ships slice aggressively through the waves, aiming for the trapped enemy. The Persian sailors scream in pure, absolute terror. Their massive ships are paralyzed as giant targets. The first brutal collision sounds like a thunderclap. A Greek trireme deeply pierces a Phoenician galley. Heavy wooden planks shatter into a million splinters. The screams of drowning men echo across the crimson water. Trapped in the bottleneck, panicked Persian captains try to reverse, causing them to crash into one another. Long rows of wooden oars are violently snapped off like twigs. Thousands of men are tossed into the freezing sea. From his golden throne on the cliff, King Xerxes stands up abruptly. His smug smile is replaced by absolute horror. The Greek hoplites jump onto the enemy decks, the heavy shields smashing into the light infantry. A violent and fierce, unrelenting battle unfolds on the wooden platforms. Spears pierce through colorful armor. The outnumbered defenders fight with the furious strength of men protecting their dying homeland. Heavy bronze rams fiercely strike the paralyzed galleys, tearing massive holes below the waterline. Seawater floods into the shattered wooden hulls. The pride of the Persian Empire begins to sink fast. Dozens of grand vessels capsize, dragging thousands of heavy armored soldiers into the dark abyss. Themistocles watches the devastation. His brutal but brilliant calculation is paying off. Above the cliffs, King Xerxes rips his royal robes in absolute agony and bitter disbelief. He watches his great armada burn and drown. The numerical advantage became their giant tomb. The narrow bottleneck proved far deadlier than any mythical storm or secret magic weapon. By sunset, the remaining Persian ships desperately flee from the cursed waters of Salamis Bay. The fractured states executed the greatest naval upset in ancient military history. Themistocles saved the West through pure psychological warfare and brilliant tactical awareness. The Persian king retreats to Asia, his grand dreams of European conquest shattered at the bottom. This victory secured the golden age of Athens, letting philosophy and democracy thrive. The bloody waters of Salamis proved that smart strategy absolutely conquers massive numbers. Years prior, they used a rocky canyon to build an immortal legend. Here, they used a narrow strait. Was this deceptive trap a brilliant act of survival, or a truly ruthless gamble with their lives? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have commanded the fleet in this crisis? If you enjoyed this history deep dive, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more epic tales.